tremendous wisdom this man had. By the way, wisdom in the Old Testament, sometime I think I did teach a course on wisdom here once years ago, but wisdom in the Bible means something much different than it does to us today. Wisdom in the Western world means book learning, that you have a degree from university. In the Old Testament, wisdom meant someone who is able to handle life, is able to make the right decisions, is able to discern between a wrong decision and a right one, and find the right thing to do, you see. That's what wisdom meant. That's why in the Old Testament, nobody was ever considered wise, usually under the age of 30, because wisdom was not something that you learned out of a book. It was something you learned by living life. And those of us who've been around the block a few times look at young people and we shake our heads and say, you know, that's not going to work. It's not going to work, okay? And that's why we're a little bothered sometimes we elect officials a little bit too young. We like to somebody a little older who's been around the block a few times. I'll let that one go. And Joseph's brothers came and bowed themselves before him with faces to the ground, and there you go. That reminds us of what, obviously? His dreams he had, you see. And Joseph, it says, recognizes his brothers right away. His brothers don't recognize him. Now, they haven't seen him for how many years? This is trivia. I know this because I looked it up. About 20 years or so they haven't seen him. Has he changed that much in 20 years? I don't know. They certainly don't expect him to be second in command in Egypt. And so I think that this is just not, it's beyond the realm of possibility. And we might also add that maybe God, just as you have in the New Testament, blinded them a little bit to it. Like the Emmaus disciples who don't recognize Jesus as they're walking to Emmaus on Resurrection Day. It says their eyes were held back. And so maybe that happened here too, I don't know. Joseph, verse 7, sees his brothers, he recognizes them, but treats them like strangers and spoke roughly to them. Where have you come from? They say from the land of Canaan. Now why does Joseph do this? This is kind of mean. Why is he doing this? He's going to play a big game with them for the next couple chapters, isn't he? Is this a mean thing to do? Or is God, through Joseph, trying to do something good for the brothers? Or maybe we could say, to Joseph, before he reveals himself, needs to know what kind of men these are. He's going to ask them to bring Benjamin down. He doesn't want them to be the same kind of fellows that they were some 20 years earlier, right? Whatever the case may be. Verse 8, Joseph recognized his brothers, they didn't recognize him. Joseph remembered the dreams he had dreamed. There you go. Two of them. He said to them, you are spies. The Hebrew word comes from the word feet or foot. It's a verb. The word for spy means once you walk around with it. So crawl around it. So that's what a spy was, I guess. When he sneaks around to find out things. You have come to see the nakedness of the land. He immediately jumps to this conclusion. But you know, you have all these little subtle clues throughout the book that you wonder why Joseph's brothers don't catch this right away. Why would he jump to that conclusion right away? And later on in the story, he's going to sit there by order. He's going to talk about your father and you have another brother. There are all these little clues. You'd think they would have picked up on that. But you know, after all, we think 20 years have gone by. They never expected this would happen. Verse 10. No, my Lord, your servants have come to buy food. We are all sons of one man. We are honest men. Your servants have never been peripatetic people, walking around like spies. He said to them, verse 12, no, it is the nakedness of the land you have come. By the way, he's speaking through an interpreter here. He's speaking through an interpreter, which may be another reason why they don't recognize him. How would Joseph learn to speak fluent Egyptian, you see? And so he babbles in this foreign tongue, you see, they don't understand it. They said, we are servants, 12 brothers, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. Behold, the youngest is this day with our father, and one is no more. In the Hebrew text, you have a definite article before the word one. The one is no more. And in English, they leave out the definite article. And maybe you should have put it in there. What might that suggest here? Maybe what you were saying, Bob Lord. They still got a little latent guilt here. The one. They know who the one is. Who is the one? He's standing right in front of them. This is an interesting thing as they make this confession, so to speak. They don't mention his name, you see. The one is no more. Joseph said to them, it is as you said. I said to you, you are spies. By this you shall be tested. By the life of Pharaoh. There's an ancient oath. May Pharaoh's life be taken. Usually swore by the holiest thing. And in the Old Testament, people usually swore by God's own name. The life of Yahweh, if I don't do this. A very strong oath, okay? Here, Joseph, showing that he's a true Egyptian, okay? It says on the life of Pharaoh, who is viewed as a god among the Egyptians. And usually the pharaohs were building these pyramids, you know, these tombs, and they ushered people into the afterlife, you see. And just a little footnote on that too, the last plague, 400 years later, will be an attack on a gradual climbing the scale of the various gods of the Egyptians. And the last god to be attacked will be Pharaoh himself, his oldest son, who is supposed to replace his father as king. He's supposed to be a god of some kind. Yet Yahweh takes his life, just like that, you see, showing that these are not gods. But that's another story. Verse 16, I'm going to test you. By the life of Pharaoh, you shall not come from this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Did they call him the youngest brother earlier? What verse is that? The youngest is this day with our father. Your youngest brother must come with you. Which, of course, is an interesting thing. He doesn't ask him why he isn't there. Send one of you and let him bring your brother while you all remain confined, that your words may be tested, whether there's truth in you, or else by the life of Pharaoh you are spies, and put them all in custody for 3 days. What do you think they thought for 3 days? What? We're in big trouble. They don't know that we see we're I'm not thinking clearly. We're kind of the curtains pulled for us. We're able to see behind the scenes, see what's going on. They don't know what's going on. As far as they're concerned, they are going to be imprisoned in Egypt the rest of their lives, okay? Because they know their father is not going to send Benjamin back there. They know that ain't going to happen, okay? And so they don't know what to do. It's always interesting you have this 3-day business. And I don't want to say this is a prediction of the resurrection. That'd be going way too far. But I will say this, that it does seem that 3 days seem in the Old Testament, and it spills over in the New Testament, to be a time when something good may happen, okay, after the end of 3 days. And the resurrection is picked up on the 3rd day, too. Joseph says, do this and you will live. I fear God. Notice the word Yahweh is not used. He uses a general word for God. So we're left in limbo here as far as which God is this Egyptian prince you live in. I fear God. If you're honest men, let one of your brothers remain confined where you are in custody, let the rest go and carry grain back. And bring your youngest brother to me, and you will not then die. And they did so. Now, verse 21, they start to mutter to themselves, and we'll find out later that who is overhearing the conversation, obviously? Joseph. As they switch now to Hebrew and start speaking back and forth, having no idea, obviously, that the one standing before them, this mighty prince of Egypt, is their brother and understands Hebrew very well. In truth, verse 21, we are guilty concerning our brother. We saw the distress of his soul. He begged us. We did not listen. This is why this distress has come upon us. And Reuben answered them. Reuben had been the one, if you go back a few chapters, he had been the one who had wanted to save Joseph's life. He is the oldest son. He views it as his responsibility. Reuben now speaks up and says, you know, I told you so. We shouldn't have done this. And you may think back to the story. It was while Reuben was gone that the Canaanite or the Ishmaelites show up and they sell Joseph. Reuben comes back and finds him gone and gets all upset. What have you done? Comes up with a plan to kill the animal and sprinkle the blood in his robe and so on. Did I tell you not to sin against the boy? Now there comes a reckoning for his blood. A reckoning. His blood will be sought out, the Hebrew text says. There are always consequences. Always consequences. If I may just digress here a moment, I drill this into the kids when I teach the 10 Commandments. And I think this is a good place to pick up this point. Maybe address them in it. There's always consequences. When you disobey natural law. What natural law here had been broken? Summarized in which commandment? You shall not hurt or harm